This is the June 20th meeting of the Haddon Heights Planning Board. This meeting is being held in accordance with the Sunshine Laws of the State of New Jersey, Chapter 145, by Mayor and Council and the Planning Board for official notices. Notice of this meeting was posted on the Borough Bulletin Board and Borough's website for that purpose. Can I have a roll call for attendance, Suzanne, please?
Mayor Houck? Here. Councilwoman Hearn? Here. Chairman Hanson?
Here.
Mr. Dukakis? Here. Mr. Famular? Here. Mr. Shannon? Here. And Mr. Schmidt? Here.
Here's we have a quorum. Let's have a flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, before we get to our caseload this evening, we have some administrative business. First would be the approval of the planning board meeting minutes of May 16th, 2024. Has everybody that was present had a chance to review the minutes? If so, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Motion passes. We have three resolutions this evening. The first one is case number 24-4-4P, William Kenny. That's 1944 South Park Avenue, Block 141, Lot 1, and that was C variance for a shed. Has everybody that voted affirmatively had a chance to review the resolution? Any questions or comments? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
Motion to approve. I'll second.
Motion and a second. Roll call, Suzanne?
Mayor Houck?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hearn?
Yes.
Chairman Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Dukakis?
Yes.
Mr. Famular? Yes. And Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next resolution, case number 24-5-1P, and that's Charles McLeister, 210 8th Avenue, Block 54, Lot 5, and that was C variance relief for a new back porch and an expanded front porch. Has everybody had a chance to review the resolution? If so, any questions, comments on the resolution? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve this resolution 24-5-1P.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, Suzanne?
Sure. Councilwoman Hearn?
Yes.
Chairman Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Dukakis?
Yes.
Mr. Famular? Yes. And Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Motion passes. Last resolution, case number 24-5-3P. That's the VFW Hall at 615 East Atlantic Avenue, Block 39, Lot 3, and that was C variance relief for a sign, identifying the building. Has everybody had a chance to review the resolution? If so, any questions or comments on the resolution? Seeing none, entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, Suzanne?
Okay. Mayor Houck?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hearn?
Yes.
Chairman Hanson?
Yes.
Mr. Dukakis?
Yes.
Mr. Famular? Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Okay, new business. Our first case this evening, case number 24-4-3P. That's Gregory Bosong, 411 2nd Avenue, Block 15, Lot 16. Looks like it's bulk variance relief for an expanded driveway, ramp, and deck on a single-family dwelling. Looks like he's represented by Mr. Irving this evening. We're familiar with Mr. Irving's qualifications, so we'll accept him as an expert witness in the field of survey. Your PE too? LA and planner, okay. Let the record reflect. Go ahead, Marty. Floor is yours. You want to be sworn in? I'm
I'll
sorry.
swear in both
And Steve.
Yeah. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Did you say you're a professional planner as well?
Yes. An architect.
Yeah, and licensed landscape architect?
Landscape architect,
Perfect.
correct.
All right, good evening, everybody. Mr. and Mrs. Bosong are here tonight to seek relief for a number of bulk variances. They're proposing a modest addition to the existing single-family home. Property is an undersized lot, 50 feet wide where 60 feet is required, and 10,000 square feet in area where 12,000 square feet is required. They're proposing a two-story addition in this back part of the house here, and enclosing an existing one-story screened porch or sunroom. So it's a modest addition. As well, they're proposing a detached two-car garage. The dimensions are 22 feet by 20 feet, 440 square feet, which is less than 450 maximum allowed by the ordinance. Our variances are for the expansion of the non-conforming structure. We have an existing minimum side yard of 6.9 feet. And because we're expanding out the back, that existing non-conformance has a minimum of a 10-foot side yard setback. Our proposed enclosure where the actual work is taking place is actually 9.1 feet. So we're just shy of the allowable 10 feet for the improvement. And also because of the narrowness of the lot, the aggregate side yard cannot be met. Again, the existing side yard is 18.1 feet, and with the expansion, that 18.1 foot on that side will remain the same.
Mr. Irving, you are expanding a deck, though,
Yes, the
Correct.
deck itself also runs up
but that would be at the,
rear of that sunroom area,
okay.
and that lines up with that newly to be enclosed area as well. That kind of distance is at the 9.1 feet as well. We're providing that detached garage and expanding the parking area, which drives our coverage calculation, need for a coverage variance. We're over by roughly 1,044 square feet, and will require relief on the maximum coverage requirement. The main point of all of this is that Mrs. Hassan has a health issue. The design of this, as you can see, includes a wheelchair access ramp to the rear deck, and the floor plan includes an elevator up to the second floor to access the new master bedroom. That would be part of the addition. In terms of the grading of the lot that we propose, we're not changing the existing drainage pattern of the lot. The existing contouring of the land and flow of water is all from this left-hand side of the plan, coming down and then down the driveway. We're proposing a 4-inch high curb so that that water does not escape the surrounding property and impact that neighbor. And you can see the grading in the back here. Similarly, the natural drainage is all going the same exact way that it used to go. There's no improvement to the front yard, therefore no regrading other than just tying back in the resurfaced driveway. The applicant is willing, because of that 10% increase in impervious cover, to provide an infiltration pit in accordance with Mr. Bob's recommendation. I believe that this plan, given the fact that the addition itself is no wider than the existing home, would have no negative impact on the zone plan or master plan or the neighborhood. And the detached garage, of course, is in keeping with what you've done thereafter. So I don't believe there's any detriment to the public good.
So just one question, Marty. The impervious coverage overage, most of that's due to the fact that you're providing the driveway so that you can put the garage in the back, correct?
Yeah, it's the driveway.
The lion's
itself,
share of the
back,
increase.
And then a stall that we've designed to be in width, the same way you would see an ADA stall. It's a 5-foot aisle.
And
then the pack.
And to achieve a set ADA accessibility, obviously. Okay.
Mr. Irving, am I, maybe you can provide some clarification. Is there a second floor addition as part of this?
Yeah, the second floor addition is over this portion here of the floor plan.
So it's not in the area where the existing 6.9 is?
Correct.
All right.
It's on the
So
wide side.
that is a 9.1 for the single side yard that you're looking for.
Right. The relief is not to allow 9.1.
So to answer the question a little bit better, here's where that addition is taking place. And the existing rear of the home, you know, on the ground floor, but that far
Okay.
already.
We're kind of closing in that back corner.
So it's still an 18.1 aggregate, but 9.1 on the individual side yard. Is the ramp made out of deck material? Can you explain what the ramp will be made out of?
Yeah, well, it'll be pressure treated lumber for the framing, of course. Guys, have you decided you want a composite deck or cedar? Haven't decided.
Well, the only thing I would ask if we can have information, because this is in benefit for the impervious coverage variance, is it going to have openings in between the individual boards? And will the surface underneath that deck material be pervious?
Yes.
So that plays into, and this is indicated in our review letter, DEP has issued the recent and current, because DEP changes stormwater rules every couple of minutes, but the current interpretation from DEP that decking material in that fashion with gaps in the wood, decking and open pervious to the ground underneath is not impervious surface. If it's a new wood deck.
Right. But some of those composite decking systems are tight to each other.
Then
that's-
they're gonna have to demonstrate that as part of the compliance and show detail of how it's gonna be built. If it's gonna have the gaps in between the boards, then they don't have to count that as impervious. If it's composite and it's tight, butted right against each other, that's gonna be considered impervious.
We're just going to consider that amount's considered impervious for the purposes of the variance relief either way, right? So that's, we're worst case scenario.
It's not gonna
Yeah,
change what
okay.
you're deciding on, but it does provide some additional.
Greater infiltration if, so I'm just clarifying that we're worst case with what's being
Correct.
sought. I don't want them to
But
come
that
back.
provides, even though the relief being sought is 40.44 in terms of drainage calculations by the DEP, it may be less than that. But we still, based on our ordinance requirement, would be voting on a 40.44 impervious coverage.
Do you want to go through your letter now, Steve?
Sure.
And we'll come back to the board for any questions or comments after that.
We refer the board to our May 1st, 2024 review. As Ms. Irving has already indicated, the variances sought are several existing conditions, one for existing side and side aggregate, but also for an existing minimum lot size, where 10,000 is existing, 12,000 is required by the zone. It's been clarified for the side yard new variance, it would be 9.1 for the one side yard with an 18.1 new aggregate and a 40.44 impervious coverage. We have several review comments referred to in the pages 3, 4, and 5 of our review. Mr. Irving has already indicated that they will comply with all comments and recommendations contained in our review.
Yeah, that's correct, Marty. You guys are good with
yeah.
everything in the letter?
Yeah, to
Okay.
clarify, one thing from Mr. Bacchus' first comment was a question about both height of the building. There's no increase in the existing height.
You're all under 35
It'll be less
feet.
than 35.
You're under 35 anyway, I would imagine. Okay.
As long as we're less than 35, that's all we need. I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Does anybody have any questions for the applicant or Marty or Steve? Comments? Seeing none, we'll open this matter up to the public. Anybody from the public that wishes to come up and speak on this application, please come forward. We'll have the solicitor swear you in. Seeing none, we'll close public comment, bring back to the board for action. Elena?
Mr. Chairman, just want to point out, it's not in our review, but it's a matter of ordinance. Grading plan will be required to be submitted.
Yeah, they're over 500.
It's, we're going to put the stormwater on it, though.
Yeah, so the grading plan is, I just want to.
We're over 500 square feet, obviously, on this, I would imagine. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
So the testimony provided by Mr. Irving to me demonstrates that the applicant is looking for a C1 variance for hardship. The existing property has a lot of pre-existing non-conforming conditions, such as the lot size, the lot width. Seems like pretty clear that it's an undersized lot. So they're looking for variances for the lot coverage. One thing that was discussed was that the garage and the driveway contributes to that level of impervious, which is has been considered a positive site attribute in Haddon Heights. They're also looking for that side yard setback, and I noted, and which will be noted in the resolution, that it's 9.1 instead of the listed 6.9. And the applicant has agreed to comply with all the conditions of the board engineer's letter.
Does anybody want to make a motion to approve or disapprove the application at this time?
I'll make a motion to approve the application. Thank you. With the conditions of Bach's letter, based on the fact that the property is a hardship being undersized.
Give a second.
I'll second.
Roll, or any discussion or questions on the motion?
No, I was just saying, that lot was 60 feet wide, its impervious coverage would be like 34%. And, you wouldn't have the side yard, the aggregate setback issues. So it is what it is.
I agree.
And the impervious coverage variance advances the borough's desire to keep
the
detached,
cars.
keep
the cars
detached
behind the
garages in the rear of the park.
And we're achieving ADA compliance, safety issue, so. Public safety issue. Any other discussion? Seeing none, roll call, Suzanne?
Mayor Hauk,
Yes.
Councilwoman Herron,
Yes.
Chairman Hanson,
Yes.
Mr. Dukakis,
Yes.
Mr. Famularo, Mr. Shannon,
Yes.
and Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Good luck with your project. I'll just make the caveat that we make to all the applicants is that next month at our meeting, or next time we meet, usually next month, we'll do a resolution that memorializes the decision that was made this evening. And then once that happens, that notice will be put in the newspaper, that notice of decision. And up until 45 days after that point, somebody could technically appeal the decision. So seeing that nobody came out to object tonight, the likelihood of that is probably pretty low. But if you were to proceed with the project before that appeal period expires, you would be doing so under your own risk. Okay? That's it. Thank you. Thanks for coming in, guys. Okay. Next case is case number 24-6, 2P. That's Benjamin and Athena Uden, 23 First Avenue, Block 5, Lot 10, and this is a two-story addition to the back of their home. See, we have a special guest with us this evening.
Hi, I'm Robert Ignari, the architect of the project. I'm a licensed architect in New Jersey, and I'm a licensed planner.
Okay. You've appeared before planning boards before?
I've appeared before many planning boards.
I have no objection. I'm familiar.
I move that we accept the credentials as an expert in the fields of architecture and planning.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your last name.
Robert J. Ignari, Ignarri.
Welcome, Mr. Ignari. We'll have Elena swear you in as soon as she's ready.
Benjamin and Athena Houston. Do we want
You're going to give to anybody that's going to give testimony, please come forward and
We'll
we'll have
swear
them
everyone
sworn.
in.
We'll have everybody sworn at the same time. Sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Did you say architecture and planning?
Architecture and planning, right, Mr. Ignari?
You're a licensed architect, licensed planner
Yes.
in the state of New Jersey, yes.
Thank you.
So I brought some photographs. We need them in that first drawing. You all have. So we're seeking both variants as well for the existing non-conforming lot, both in lot area and lot width. And we're seeking a variance for nonconformity to the side yard setback aggregate and side yard setback single. The project, I'll just briefly go over that. It's a two-story addition to the rear of the building. And I would like to say that this particular house is in the historic district. We did review this with the historic commission. And there's two pieces to the project. One really isn't affected by a variance. It's a small new front door entrance canopy. You'll see the details on the drawing. That was shown also to the HPC. I think they looked at it favorably. The addition to the variance is in the back of the building. It's a two-story, approximately 16 foot, 20 foot addition. It's about 338 square feet. It's 2 stories. On the first floor, it is overlaying a portion of the old kitchen which will be removed. That's the only portion of the building that will be removed. It's a small addition in the back. And it's overlaying an existing patio that will be removed. We set the sidewall within the existing right sidewall, so the new addition is completely behind the existing house. So you can see the existing house. It's here, that's the main house, brick structure. And this is the addition, which infills an area. There's a single-story family room that was built sometime after the house in the back. Single-story, 2-story addition. The ridge line is lower than the structure. We purposely set it in because the historic district, we didn't want it visible from the street as close as possible. Then we picked the size for the addition to fit a main bedroom upstairs with a bath and decent even size kitchen in connection to the backyard. Right now, the house only has 1 bathroom on the 2nd floor. So we've got a second bathroom up there, and we've got a powder room on the 1st floor. That's within the footprint of the garage. It's not an addition to the house. And again, we went to the Historic Preservation Commission a few months ago.
I saw their report. You're in agreement with all the recommendations? I think there were 7 recommendations in the report that I saw.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, the practical difficulty with the site is that it's such a small lot for that zone. It's it's 6,003, I lost my number. It is 6,995 square feet, and the width is 46.63. If you apply the setbacks to that particular lot, you end up with a buildable area of 11.63 feet. So the practical difficulty is that you can't build a reasonable structure within that setback. So our main hardship is the fact that there's not enough living space.
Undersized lot,
This is going to size a lot because of the extreme setback.
which is a result of the undersized lot.
So would you like me just to go quickly through our letter?
Sure.
Thank you. With Chairman.
Absolutely.
Thank you. June 14, 2024 review. As we heard from the applicant that this is really relief sought for several existing conditions, which are in support of the variance request, which we'll talk about in a moment. But minimum lot size in the R1 zone, 15,000 square feet, 6,995 square feet existing. Minimum lot width is 75 feet, 46.63 is existing. They have an existing side yard of 5.17 feet, 15 feet is required, and then also a side yard existing aggregate of 12.77 feet. The relief that they're proposing is only to have a 10-foot side yard setback where 15 feet is required. That is the only new relief. The applicant has indicated that they're going to comply with the 30-foot maximum lot coverage. And we also have a few comments directing rain spouts away from neighbors. But this is less than 500 square feet, so a grading plan will not be required. So most of the relief is existing due to undersized lot. And the only new relief is a 10-foot side yard setback where 15 foot is required for the new addition.
Currently, that side yard setback is approximately 6 feet, so
It is noted that they are adding a small canopy on the front of the house. We note that not to be an encroachment into the front yard because it doesn't extend all the way down to the ground. It's a cornice or an eave, in our opinion, so there's no need to recognize that as any extension of any encroachment into the front yard. I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody have anything further, Mr. Ignari?
I was going to say, the benefit for this type of project is that we're expanding the house without affecting the character of the street, especially in the historic district. It's giving Ben and Nadine the ability to stay in this house for a long time. It's always been their intent. It's going to be quite an investment in the property. They want to be able to stay there for the family.
Providing a desirable visual environment.
We could to keep it in the back of the building without disturbing the front of the building.
You're providing a visual environment, a positive visual environment.
Positive visual environment, maintaining the historic character of the neighborhood.
Anybody have any questions for the applicant or Mr. Ignari or Mr. Bach?
I have a question for Mr. Ignari. The lots to either side, are they also narrow or are they?
Yeah, they're very similar. In fact, the one on the right has a very similar addition. You can see this right here. The left side lot, a little different house, but this is.
Yeah, but this is working.
But
Is
there's a
it,
series of lots, there's about 6 or 8 of them.
Yours is
They're all about the same size.
right, so maybe, excuse me, maybe these were really supposed to be two 75-foot lots and end up being 3 46-foot lots. In a sense, right? I mean,
Yeah, it's a
Kind
good
of
way to
thing.
look at it, yeah.
so yeah, it's just the way it was done.
And that exemplifies the.
Yeah.
How extremely
Okay.
small they are compared to what's required.
Yep, it's an anomaly in that district.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did you say that the neighbor on one side has a similar addition to the back?
Yes, on the right side, which is the southeast side. They have a 2-story addition along the back of the house. It expands a little bit beyond what we're, you know,
Anybody else? Seeing nothing, I'll open the application up to the public for comment, questions. Anybody want to speak on this application, 23 First Avenue, please come forward, we'll have you sworn in. Seeing none, we'll close public. Does anybody need any further discussion or questions? If not, we'd bring it back to Elena for a summary of what's being sought this evening.
Okay, so it looks like the only new variance that they're requesting is the side yard setback, which is 10 feet where 15 feet is required. Besides that, it appears they, similar to the other property, have a lot of pre-existing non-conforming conditions. And that variance is the result of the pre-existing non-conforming conditions of the lot size and the lot width. Similarly, also to the last one, this appears to be qualifies for the C1 variance because any strict application of the zoning regulations would be a hardship to the applicant based on, as previously said, these pre-existing non-conforming conditions. They create some exceptional practical difficulties with the layout of the property. And it sounds like they are going to comply with board engineer's letter and also the recommendations for the HPC, keeping the character of the property. And I think it's also, you know, a benefit that a neighbor has similar addition on the back as well. So,
Anybody want to make a motion to approve or disapprove the application?
I'll make a motion to approve the application with the, with everything that was set forth in the Bach letter. And saying this because I definitely see that it's a hardship to the homeowners to have a lot that small in that district. It seems to be more than half the width that it should, or half the size that it should have been in that district.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions on the motion? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call. Suzanne?
Mayor Hauk,
Yes.
Councilwoman Herron,
yes.
Chairman Hanson.
Yes.
Mr. Dukakis?
Yes.
Mr. Famularo?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Ms. McCall? No, wait, I forgot. I got it.
Motion passes. Congratulations. You heard the Gettysburg Address I gave about the appeal period for the last hearing. Same would apply here, just to make you aware. Good luck with your project.
Oh, I forgot you, Brian. Brian. I forgot Brian. Sorry. Were you yes?
It was really close.
He's the one who made
I
the
knew I
second
forgot
of the motion.
to say, sorry.
All right, our third and final case for this evening is case number 24-5-2P. This is Station Avenue Lofts LLC, 501/503 Station Avenue, Block 25, lots 16 and 17.01. I see they're represented by the illustrious Mr. Riso this evening. Anybody that's going to give testimony should come forward. We get your qualifications, have you sworn in. No rush.
Mr. Anderson, if you give me 1 minute, please, to get set up.
No.
Suzanne, is there one
We
more?
don't,
I'm not on my.
Yeah, whatever you're giving. Whatever you're giving
Sue
that.
DeBarrow?
Yeah, I need it. Thank you. That's all right. No door opening, no exhibits.
You rate.
Right, like, right.
sure, of course. Solicitor's going to run upstairs for a minute. We just need a minute or two. Lena's got to run upstairs real quick to check something, I think, so.
You want to go up
Just
the
need a minute.
stack?
You guys set everything up. What's that? No, I don't think so. No. Yes.
I'll read that thing.
Yeah. I never asked. They're not in that situation. You can't go, you can't walk to the next car. You could. Just want to crawl under the train. That's pretty funny. It's a mistake you only make once. So. Hopefully. Oh, yeah. He's telling a story.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Yes,
You would've been
trained
okay.
her. She was pregnant one time and she said, "Oh, like it's a mistake you only make once, hopefully.
Insert the foot in now. Yeah.
Can I crawl onto the third rail after this train stops, please? Stick my tongue on the third rail.
Oh, we do fast in those cases. Yeah. It's funny, I was reliving my version.
Ah,
That was the sun.
yeah.
The irony was that on the sign, like, there's resistance seeing this because it shows me the draft of the sign. It wouldn't even be here. Yeah, just, that took us like minutes to get.
Oh, it was a long
Just
application.
a lot. I mean,
People were beating them up about the design.
Oh, yeah.
and it was just like,
And it was there for like 6 months anyway, right?
and then they changed it.
They were there long. They were there last time when we did that planning board meeting, I think. Want to have anybody who's going to be sworn in come forward?
With two professionals and representatives from the applicant, in case the board has any questions.
Okay. Cliff's been before the board. It's Cliff Quay, right? Cliff's been before the board, planning and engineering, right? We're familiar with his credentials. We'll accept him as an expert witness. And then who's our other?
Spencer's my licensed architect. And then I have Gary Farrell and Anthony Gielli. They are the principals of the applicant, in case the board wants to hear from them.
Okay, we'll have everybody sworn in.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
In terms of Anthony's qualifications, you're licensed in the state of New Jersey?
Pennsylvania and Delaware. My business partner is licensed in New Jersey.
It's up to you if you want to establish some criteria,
I'm happy to do that if the,
only because I'm unfamiliar.
I think we should set a
you
record.
want to do it now or before I call him as a witness?
Whatever's easiest for you. Whatever you would prefer.
But we can do that now. We might as well get it out of the way.
Yeah, let's do that so we don't forget.
Mr. Spencer, by whom are you employed?
Nome Architects, LLC,
And how long have you been with Nome Architects?
7 years.
And what is your role?
One of the owners, 50% owner.
And what are your roles there? What do you do?
Everything from taking on new business, meeting new clients, to feasibility study, schematic design, all the way through final quality control.
And you're licensed in Pennsylvania and Delaware?
Yes.
Have you been accepted as an expert in architecture in Pennsylvania and Delaware?
Yes, I
Has you ever been qualified as an expert before any boards in New Jersey?
No.
And you have a partner who is?
Yes.
Okay. And very briefly, could you give the board the benefit of your educational background?
Yeah, I attended Temple University, received my Bachelor of Architecture. That was a 5-year program, graduated in 2013, practicing ever since.
And your license is in good standing?
Yes.
I have no objection, Mr. Chairman.
I have no objection.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you for doing that.
Thank you.
You're familiar with the building codes in New Jersey, obviously. You're familiar with building codes, you or whoever prepared the plans are IBC, right? Okay. Proceed, please.
Good evening, Chairman Hanson, members of the board. My name is Eric Riso. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Zeller and Velichko. I'm filling in this evening for Damian Del Duca of Del Duca, Lewis and Burr, because Damian unfortunately had to be before another board tonight for a court order. He wanted to be here. He means no disrespect. Hopefully, I will fill his shoes. I have the pleasure this evening of representing Station Avenue Loss LLC, the applicant in this case. That entity is the legal or equitable owner of 501 and 503 Station Avenue, more commonly known as Block 25, lots 16 and 1701 on the tax map of the borough. These two lots are at the southwest corner of White Horse Pike and Station Avenue. 501 Station is a 2-story structure and 503 is a 1-story structure. Both are in poor condition. The applicant proposes to demolish both buildings and all the site improvements and construct a new mixed-use building, which will have 3,991 square feet of commercial use. There's no tenants yet, and that will be on the ground floor, and 12 apartments on the upper floors, 6 1-bedrooms and 6 2-bedroom units. 2 of these apartments will be restricted to low and moderate income individuals. In other words, they will be affordable units. The property is located in the CB Central Business District and within the historic district boundary. The applicants previously submitted an application to the borough's Historic Preservation Commission, from which it's received approval for the demolition of existing buildings. The property is part of a non-condemnation redevelopment area and is subject to the terms of a redevelopment plan adopted by Borough Council on November of 2023 by way of Ordinance 2023:1537, which I'll refer to during this presentation as the redevelopment plan, or sometimes the RDP. The purpose of the redevelopment plan in part is to enable and encourage revitalization and the development of mixed-use buildings. As you can see from the photograph on the easel, the proposed building in context, the building will be a substantial improvement to the downtown area as compared to what exists today. It will include a roof deck, which will be a nice amenity for the residents. The proposed mixed use is permitted on the property pursuant to Section 6A9 of the redevelopment plan. The approvals that we require this evening and we're seeking from the board are preliminary and final major site plan approval, any historic approval that may be required by this board. To my knowledge, we meet all of the requirements of the redevelopment plan, and therefore, unlike the prior 2 applications, we do not require any variances or design waivers or deviations under the RDP, with one small exception regarding street trees, and we'll have Mr. Quay testify about that, the reason why we need that one small deviation. The board deemed this application complete on May 16th. We have Mr. Bach's review letter dated June 12 of 2024. We will provide the testimony that he's asked for in that letter this evening through our professionals, and we have no objection to any of his recommendations. And again, the only concern that we will address are the spacing for the street trees. The purpose of the site plan is to confirm that the application conforms with all the applicable ordinance requirements, and in this case, the applicable RDP requirements. The application complies with and is consistent with the RDP. This is evidenced by Mr. Bach's June 12 letter, where he shows repeatedly and states that we comply with the requirements of the RDP, and he's asked for testimony where clarification is needed, and again, we'll provide that. We also have a letter from the borough's planner, Leah Fury-Bruder, dated May 7, 2024, which was addressed to Borough Council, and, excuse me, where she confirms that the proposed redevelopment of these two lots is consistent with the redevelopment plan. According to Ms. Fury-Bruder, the purpose of the redevelopment plan applicable to Lot 16 and 17.01 and Block 25 is to provide a framework for mixed-use development that will enhance the character of Haddon Heights and improve the pedestrian experience while safely accommodating vehicles. If there are any minor deviations from the redevelopment plan requirements, the redevelopment plan provides that a redeveloper may request a C or bulk variance from the planning board as part of its site plan application. According to Ms. Fury-Bruder, the applicant's site plan and architectural submission reflect the cooperative design and planning process. And in conclusion, the proposed mixed-use building is consistent with the project description in the draft redevelopment agreement, is permitted by the redevelopment plan, and it appears that the concept plan is in general compliance with the redevelopment plan standards. The redevelopment of these properties has been a collaborative effort between the redeveloper and the borough. Tonight's hearing for site plan approval is one of the multiple steps in the redevelopment process, as this board is aware. The adoption of the redevelopment plan was intended to facilitate the redevelopment of these properties, and the limited purpose of the site plan aspect of this evening's hearing is to confirm that the application does in fact comply with the redevelopment plan and any other applicable requirements. The other purpose of tonight's hearing is to obtain historic approval from this board as required under the borough's ordinances. The HPC, after 2 hearings, has approved our application. They made a recommendation to this board, and like the HPC, we're requesting that this board also approve the demolition of the existing 2 buildings, which have very little architectural or historical significance, and that the board this evening approve the construction of the new building. As I mentioned earlier, we have 2 experts this evening, Mr. Quay of Stantec Engineering. He's a licensed planner professional. The board's already accepted him as an expert. We have Derek Spencer, our architect, who's already now been qualified. And if necessary, I can call Mr. Farrell and/or Giolelli, the principals of the applicant. With that, I'd like to call Mr. Spencer. Mr. Chair, that suits the board? Okay. Mr. Spencer, did you prepare the architectural plans that have been submitted with the application?
Yes.
Okay, you have them here with you?
Yes.
Okay, and they're on the easel over there?
Yeah, first we have a rendering here that's the only sheet on this board, so that'll stay. And here I have the full presentation that you can flip through, which includes floor plans of the building, roof plans of the building, along with additional renderings.
So Mark, the proposed building in context, we mark that as A1.
Were these submitted with the original application or any of these new?
I know the pictures were submitted with the original application, the plans have been updated.
No, the plans are consistent with what was originally submitted. I think what we have in excess to what was originally submitted was some of the more historic related documents that were presented to HPC.
Okay, why don't we mark the ones that are new A1? Anything that was submitted with the original application, I don't think we don't need to mark.
Okay, that's fine.
What do you want to call it?
Mr. Spencer, what the new ones that we're going to mark as A1?
We can call that historic documentation.
Thank you.
Or supplemental materials.
Could you please, for the board, provide an overview of the architectural features of the exterior of the proposed building and refer to the exhibits as necessary?
Sure. So we're providing a 3-story building at the corner. We have a fully commercial first floor along Station Avenue. The residential entrance to the building has been pushed back along White Horse Pike to provide the most amount of commercial store frontage that we can. We really looked at a lot of the buildings up and down Station Avenue for architectural inspiration, looking at their materiality, detailing, as well as some spatial, pedestrian components. We looked at how different storefronts are entered up and down Station Avenue, and we modeled our building after some of those same design concepts. We have the majority of the first floor is set in about 7 feet from the property line to kind of give a covered arcade that could be for outdoor seating for a cafe. But it also opens up sight lines at the corner for pedestrians and vehicles. We have a mostly a red brick facade at the second and third floor. We do have some brick at the ground floor as well, and we have a lot of wood paneling that's been painted this navy blue color that you see here. That's very consistent with a lot of different buildings like gas station avenue. We are using double hung windows, the simulated divided light, again, a little bit of a historic nod to the street. And then we have a cornice at the top as well as some projected bays, 2 bays on Station Ave, 3 bays, bay window on the White Horse Park. Again, an architectural element that's very consistent up and down the street.
The proposed building have a roof deck, is that correct?
Yes, we have a roof deck that's accessed by 2 staircases and 1 elevator. There is an elevator in the building, the entire building is ADA accessible, including the roof deck.
And can you discuss some of the primary features of the deck and how it will be operated?
So there's going to be 2 roof decks, one that will be dedicated to the commercial space so they can have access to it, whether it be for employees or patrons of the business, and then there will be another side that will be completely separate for the residences. There will be, it's called a pedestal paver system, so it will be a nice kind of tiles, and then there will be a green roof surrounding that for some stormwater mitigation.
The first floor of the building will be for commercial tenants, correct?
Correct.
And as of yet, no tenants have been selected, is that correct? Okay, and the second floor, there will be 12 apartment units?
There's 6 on each floor.
Six.
On floor 2, there's 6, and the same 6 repeat on floor 3.
And 6 will be 1 bedroom and the other 6 will be 2 bedroom, correct?
I believe that's supposed to be. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And 2 of the units will be affordable?
Yes.
Now, the redevelopment plan has certain architectural design standards, and Mr. Bach identified them on page 5 of his review letter dated June 12. I'd like to go through them with you. So at number 8, architectural design features. Now, Mr. Bach says they comply, but just so that we can provide testimony, as Mr. Bach suggested, we do. Architectural design features shall be employed to create visual interest at the pedestrian level and street level and to integrate each building with the surrounding area. Can you explain to the board how we're achieving that?
Yes, I can actually flip to more of a street level rendering here. You can see a lot of the architectural paneling and detailing at the ground floor matches a lot of the existing buildings in the street. We have recessed entries at both of the commercial entrances, as well as some lighting to make sure that the sidewalk is adequately lit. On our property, we're providing some planter boxes as well, for some increase. Plant light on the site. Overhead, you can see some of those architecturally projected bay windows with the trim. So that's quite a bit of architectural interest.
And Mr. Russo, the first complies indicate the submission. The other ones that are asking for testimony, we're not indicating
Gotcha.
compliance. It's up to the
That's what I'm
board based on
having
the
Mr.
testimony.
Spencer
Thank you.
testify, and I
Just wanna make sure
appreciate the
we're clear.
clarification, and I
Thank you.
apologize for any confusion. Mr. Spencer, the next item, new construction should utilize compatible architecture that respects and enhances the nature and character of the downtown area. Can you provide testimony with respect to that?
Yes, so you can see here the supplemental materials that we brought tonight that were presented at HPC. We have done a lot of research up and down the street to some of the other buildings that are in the historic district. We've incorporated a lot of those elements you can see here, the bay windows from trim, the double hung windows, to the recessed first floor with kind of an arcade, to provide some covered outdoor space as well. So we have a lot of these architectural elements included in our building.
Next item, the first floor of the building facing Station Avenue and the White Horse Pike shall include prominent transparent entryways flanked with windows or other openings on at least 33% of the first floor facade. Can you speak to that, please?
Yeah, so along Station Avenue, we actually have 48% of our first floor is glazed. And on the White Horse Pike, 33% is glazed, and then we have another opening that'll kind of have a metal mesh screen into the parking area to kind of simulate a window. So that would also count towards it, but we actually do have 33% glazing, even not counting that.
So we meet that requirement.
We do get that requirement.
Next item, building facades facing Station Avenue and the Whitehorse Pike shall include recesses, projections, and openings, and variation in materials and repeated bays to reflect the rhythm of the predominant development pattern in the area.
Yeah, we've talked about that a few times. We have the projected bays, the second and third floor, recessed entries. Combination of materials.
Very good. The building entryway shall be articulated and provide shelter for pedestrians with a porch, portico, colonnade, or awning. Do we comply with that requirement?
Yes, we do. We have the colony along Station Avenue here, and we have the recessed entry as well.
Next item, all street frontages are primary facades. Primary facades shall utilize brick, panel, siding, and glass as the dominant materials. Secondary sides of a building shall include the same materials, but the proportions may vary. However, secondary facades may provide a mural in lieu of matching materials. Do we comply with that requirement? And
Yes.
so can you explain how, please?
Yes, you can see here we have primarily the paneling and the red brick of both street frontages. We have those same materials wrapped along the back. We transition to some other side materials on that side. We are, to show one rendering concept mural going along the park wall. That's subject to approval by
So that's approval, subject to approval by mayor and council, correct?
Sure.
Which is consistent with the redevelopment plan.
And we'll obviously agree to that as a condition of approval. The corner buildings located at the intersection of the two public streets shall receive special massing and treatment to define the intersection. In that regard, at the corner of Station Avenue and Whitehorse Pike, welcome signage shall be provided to identify and define the gateway to the downtown area, consistent with sign requirements in the later section. Do we comply?
Yes, so we have 42-inch parapets, which are 24 inches taller than the adjacent parapets that pop up the corner and emphasize the corner of the building. We are also providing some signage later as well on the second floor.
The next item, the first floor building facade shall be set back a minimum of 5 feet from the second floor facade for a distance of at least 30 feet from the building corner to create a colonnade and covered patio at the corner. We comply.
Our architectural plans actually have 29 feet along Whitehorse Pike, but we will comply with that. We'll move that wall back one foot.
And lastly, the building massing shall be viewed at the corner to define the intersection. The parapet at the building corner may extend an additional 24 inches above the adjacent parapet for a maximum of 20 linear feet in each direction from the building corner. We comply with that requirement as well. Awnings and canopies on the building must be the same shape, color, material, height, regardless of the individual business ownership and/or tenancy in the building. The awnings or canopies cannot extend more than 4 feet out from the building facade and must be a minimum of 7 feet above grade. Just can you confirm no awnings or canopies are proposed, correct? Pilot houses are permitted to extend above the maximum building height to make use of rooftop outdoor space with the following conditions. Number one, the pilot house may extend a maximum of 10 feet above the roof with an additional 5-foot allowance at the elevator hoistway to allow for entrapment requirements. Do we comply with that? The pilot house must be set back a minimum of 15 feet from the building facade along street frontages. We comply with that requirement as well.
Yes, we do.
All rooftop activity must be set back a minimum of 8 feet from the building facades. This does not include green roof elements. We comply with that as well.
Yes, we do.
Okay, with respect to rooftop HVAC units, they must be screened to ensure that they are not visible from street level or from the second floor windows of neighboring buildings. Screening may be parapet walls or architectural screening designed to complement the building. Do we comply? And if so, can you provide testimony, explain to the board how we do, please?
Yes, we do. Around the areas where we have HVAC equipment, we have a full 42-inch parapet that goes up to block. Where we don't have HVAC equipment, we have a lower parapet that was asked for by HVC to lower the overall mass of the building. So we have 42-inch parapets here at the front, as I mentioned, and in the back where we do have the HVAC equipment, we'll also have a similar kind of popped-up parapet there.
And we agreed with HPC's recommendation and devised the plans accordingly, correct?
Yes.
So relief will be, and I'm not objecting to it, but relief will be required for the lower parapet. Because the redevelopment plan indicates 42 inches required for parapet. I would ask for the relief just so you have it. It's a design waiver.
No problem.
Sure.
I'm sorry, it's lower than 42?
We just heard testimony for the first time that part of the parapets are lower than 42 inches.
Correct, yes.
They are. Okay. What are they?
Was that at HPC's request? Is that why we did that?
Yeah, that was an HPC request to keep the parapets as low as possible. They're just a little bit higher than what the green roof would be. They're about 18 to 24 inches.
If the board wants us to stick with the RDP, that's fine. We just wanted to accommodate HPC's request.
I have no objection to the parapet. I just want to recognize it so we have a clean record.
Right, so that 8-foot setback, then you're going to have a 42-inch rail then, guardrail?
Yes.
And safety-wise, you're okay.
Either on the TV or here, I can put to the roof plan and show that.
I think the RDP says, the
Yeah.
RDP, that requirement says the parapets have to be a maximum of 42 inches above the roof line shall be utilized to obscure the roof.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, you can see here the 8-foot setback line where we have our roof deck. You do have a 42-inch guardrail. That was proposed more like a metal estate fence and not as a solid wall. Again, just a request of HPC.
Right, so it's an IBC rail, it can get 4-inch, circle through the, right, okay, thank you.
So sorry, just to recap, do we require relief for that or no? That's a time waiver?
No.
No.
And I can't see the graphic. Can you show where the railing is?
The railing is here, the 8-foot setback line around any occupied space.
So will the railing be visible from the street with the lower parapet? When you're looking up from the street, are you going to see
Not
this?
in most areas, we do have it modeled in our 3D model, and you can't see it from where the camera angles are located, but obviously you can get very far back from this building. I'm sure at some point you would be able to see it, which is why HPC requested it be kind of a black metal estate fence. But from any of the sidewalks in the surrounding area where we have these camera angles, where you can't see the pilot houses or the railings.
Thank you.
And lastly, with respect to the utility, water meters, gas meters, electric meters, ground mounted mechanical units, they must be hidden from public view with structural or landscape screening. We will comply. And how will we do that?
The meters for the building are going to be located adjacent to the parking area, which tucks under the rear of the building and is screened from the light post pipe by the masonry wall. Those meters will be located on the wall that backs up to the lobby in front of the cars that are there. They'll be screened with bollards to make sure the cars aren't able to walk with
With respect to signs, do we propose any identification signs?
Not at this time, other than the welcome to have.
That's it, which I was about to get to. So there's an existing welcome to Haddon Night sign at the corner. Do we intend to replace that with a new welcome sign on the building?
It is on our conceptual renderings. We were asked at HPC to actually remove that lettering, but that was just a request. We did not actually remove it from this.
For the board's benefit, we told Borough Council we would try to remove the existing sign in a way that the town can reuse it elsewhere. That's the extent of our responsibility with respect to that welcome sign. But
Well,
That's in the negotiation.
issues with the redevelopment
So we'll
agreement.
remove the existing sign that's purchased by Adam's neighbors, and we'll repurpose it.
and you're privy to the negotiations as the redevelopment entity, obviously. Do you want the ability or a condition of approval for a welcome sign? If you, this is the time to ask, because
We have it included in our agreement we're negotiating right now. So the question you're asking is, do I want it in this?
so it's either relief now or because it is a requirement.
Yeah.
So I would suggest if it's acceptable, that a welcome to Haddon Heights sign as negotiated under the redevelopment agreement with the redevelopment entity. So you'd be working with mayor and council on whatever that is, or none, if the redevelopment entity decides, or if you choose not to. But that way, the land use board's out of that
The land use, and
process.
as a condition of approval, we will continue, as we've done, we will continue to work with Borough Council with respect to the welcome sign issue.
Good?
Okay, all right. I'm just going to keep moving along, if that's okay? All right, with respect to historical approval, section 450-107 of the borough's ordinance states that all actions that affect the improvement within a historic district, which we're in, have to be reviewed by the Historic Preservation Commission. This includes demolition of an improvement in the historic district, as I've already mentioned. We have already received that approval from the Historic Preservation Commission. Section 450-108 of your ordinance says, though, that for all planning board applications which affect an improvement within the historic district, that the historic landmark project review application must be submitted to the planning board and requested for planning board approval. We've done this. Again, we received it from HPC. We're asking that this board likewise grant the same approvals.
Can I ask a question for the historic preservation commission approval? The only thing I see in our package is from comments that were about a year ago, and that's, can you just tell us, I understand we met with them a couple months ago.
February 24th.
Oh, I didn't see that.
It's a pass. Yeah, awesome.
Right.
Okay. I didn't see it.
No, it's okay. Thank you, Mr. Dukakis. I appreciate that.
Go ahead.
So the criteria for the demolition of the structures in the historic district, per the ordinance, the factors include the existing building's significance to the district as a contributing or non-contributing structure and probable impact on its removal from the district, economic feasibility of alternatives, architectural value, and importance of structures to the borough, and the extent to which retention would promote the general welfare. Mr. Spencer, in your opinion, do the existing buildings have significance to the district as a contributing or non-contributing structure?
In their current state, I would say they're not contributing. They've received many alterations over the years, which have impacted their contributing status.
And will the demolition, in your opinion, have a material impact on the district? Is it economically feasible to keep the two buildings, in your opinion?
From what I've read and understood, no, it's not.
And will the removal of these two structures be detrimental to the public interest? The other factor is the extent to which the retention of the buildings would promote the general welfare by maintaining and increasing real estate values, generating business, creating new jobs, attracting tourists and new residents, encouraging interest and study of American history and the history of Haddon Heights, stimulating interest in architecture and design, educating citizens in American culture and heritage, or making the municipality a more attractive and desirable place in which to live. Does this criterion apply to these two buildings? Okay, the new building with the increased residential and high-quality architecture would promote some of these factors. Yes. Not the existing, but the new building. Correct. I don't have any further questions for Mr. Spencer. I don't know if Mr. Bach does before we move on to Mr.
There's one
Quay.
of our comments regarding encroachment of the architectural elements into the county right of way. Is that Mr. Quay or Mr. Spencer who's going to be discussing that? Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
I did want to add one thing about the lettering as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, please.
In this, it talks about the 9-inch height on the lettering. It was talked about with HPC that 9 inches, it would be far too small for the sign of this nature. We are currently proposing the lettering somewhere between 12 and 14 inches. But again, if that's going to be
That's all condition of coordination with the redevelopment entity in terms of a condition. Who will be giving testimony as to operational aspects? There's several questions regarding shared access to the elevator, the trash enclosures, whose is what, how's it going to work? Is that architectural testimony? Is that owner testimony? Or is it Cliff Quay testimony?
Mr. Quay can testify to some of Mr. Bach, and what he can't answer, I have.
Thank you, perfect.
Either representative of my client.
And I still have a question for
Use it, whatever you
Spencer.
want.
Is it?
Yeah.
So regarding the roof decks, so we have a commercial deck and a residential deck. And I'm just curious, I mean, you mentioned the commercial deck could be used for patrons of the commercial business or staff. I mean, are you considering a restaurant in that corner? Is that something that you envisioned? And that would be rooftop dining? Is that something you're trying to say?
Possibly, yes. Yeah.
And so then, if you're thinking about a restaurant in one or two of those locations, retail locations, requires a commercial kitchen and commercial ductwork and so forth. And how does that work in your plan as you try to get up to 2 stories of residential use?
Yes, we actually, And since we're gonna talk about trash in a little bit as well, you can see here on the plans, we have a trash route shown, which has a chute. One is a chute down, the other one is a vent up to the roof. We're actually getting rid of the trash chute on the floor, just gonna have tenants put their trash downstairs in the dumpster.
Okay.
That trash chute is now gonna become the shaft way for the ventilation of the kitchen hood.
Or potential kitchen.
Potentially, yes. The shaft will be built into the building, you know, they would have to come back and fit that out with the proper equipment if and when that lease gets signed.
And certainly, if we were to have a commercial tenant as a restaurant, we would comply with all borough ordinances, state laws, health codes, et cetera.
It's fine. And then as far as the individual condenser units, that's just piping that just runs down the walls? You're not using that, you're not using the shafts for that?
No, there's no shafts required. Those are these small condenser ones.
Thank you.
So a question, with that shaft, because I would assume, put my architect hat on, you would have to extend it higher than the pilot house to be able to effectively use. Would you make that shaft part of the pilot house?
The shaft would not align with the pilot house. We would be keeping the roof deck space, you know, a good radius away from that. I think we might need 8 feet clear. I'd have to kind of look into the code requirements for what that kitchen hood equipment would be. I think that might depend on the size of the kitchen hood, what we're exhausting, a lot of different, technical requirements based on the actual.
Steve, it's not smoke, it's grease.
No, I understand.
Yeah, no, but the problem with those is that you got to clean them. And
So
From what I
is it
understand-
fair to say that you would not, this extension of any kitchen exhaust equipment would not be visible from Station or Wires Place? That's all I was getting towards.
Anything else from Mr. Spencer at this point?
Can you clarify again what you said earlier about the railing on the roof deck?
So, yeah, let me see here. Sorry. So you can see here the small, let's call it half wall that comes up above the roof is called parapet. So that's going to be a solid wall that comes up about 18 inches above the roof deck surface. That kind of gives an edge to where we have the green roof around. And then that's not adequate for fall protection. Fall protection is required at 42 inches. So that railing will be set back 8 feet at the edge of the roof deck location. So that'll kind of bound where you can walk around the roof deck. They don't need to step and walk.
You do have one exception area for the stairs.
Yes,
Right.
or I would say setback from the street.
From the streets, correct.
Street frontages, we do have the stairs that are kind of along the property line on this side. That's not a pilot house though, it's just an exterior stair that goes down. We didn't want any pilot houses to be seen, from down Station Avenue back to the building. So the elevator is located between the lobby of the building and the commercial space. That'll be a two-sided elevator for use by the commercial space. That'll be used with a special key that they would have to get up just to the roof level.
Just confirm the non-residential use the elevator?
It is.
It is.
So the residential elevator and the commercial elevator, it's one and the same. It's going to be shared by both. The rooftop deck will be shared by both depending on which door you go out. Would there be?
It would be just one side for the commercial only. The tenants of the building and the commercial space patrons, if they do go up, are not going to mingle on the same deck. They'll both have their individual space.
Is it access controlled or something along those lines?
Yeah, they would have a fob on the door, and anybody from the commercial space going up would have to be, obviously escorted up or however. So the pilot house does most of that work. Here. Yes, you can see on the back side is the commercial roof deck right now. There's green roof and pilot house. So again, you would have an access control fob to get up to the residential roof deck, and commercial space. utility space all feet or? We would actually, it's not graphically shown, but we would probably have some type of railing there. The intention is not to walk on the green, but that you might keep.
And the elevator is only is accessible from the lobby and also in the commercial space 1, but no access for our commercial space 2.
Can you provide any insight? We have a trash enclosure where the dumpsters are, which we heard the residents. Are the residents bringing the trash to the dumpsters, and there's a trash room also? I understand you got rid of the trash chutes on the individual floor, but what is that first floor trash room?
That actual, we had some rearranging that needs to happen just for utility rooms, for meters, sprinkler pump room, et cetera. That's where the trash room is actually gonna go to that utility space that's required, so the tenants are just gonna take their trash to the dumpsters in the enclosure.
So you're not going to actually have a trash room per floor or a trash room underneath the overhang of the building?
The trash enclosure will be under the second floor of the building, adjacent to the parking area.
Well, I
So
guess
it's within the footprint. of the
on
building, but
on your floor plan renderings, you actually have something called trash, which is the trash enclosure, I would assume, and you had trash room on the first floor.
Correct. The trash room is becoming a utility room.
Thank you. And then the second and third floor trash rooms are going to disappear there, right?
Correct. And that's going to be the shaft.
That's going to be utility space.
So the trash is being removed, I guess, it will be through the borough contract. So the trash truck is going to be backing up into this space?
It
or
will not be by borough.
Even for the commercial, even for the
let's say,
residential?
Mr.
I'll-
Quinn, testify to that.
yeah,
All right.
we'll have the owner testify.
Or I'm just saying, how's that trash truck getting back? How's that trash being, it's all the way in the back of that property?
We'll provide testimony. It's a good question. We'll answer. Any other questions for Mr. Spencer at this time? And obviously, we can bring him back up if the board does. Mr. Chair, my next witness would be Mr. Quay. Let's see.
There was just one more,
Sure.
that
For
was
the
testimony was
architects?
required for Mr. Spencer.
Sure,
I'm
sure.
sorry.
No, it's okay.
Regarding storage, so in the redevelopment plan, it calls for storage for tenants, bicycles, strollers, and other large personal items. Can it be provided in the unit? Do you need any special additional space?
We are actually going to take about half of that trash room at the first floor and going to dedicate that square footage to a bike room at the ground floor.
And then you have ample storage in the space for other larger
We
personal
have
items.
closets in all the units that are ample.
Thank you.
storage.
Yep, I just wanted to check off my testimony items.
No problem. Thank you. Mr. Quay, you've been sworn, you've been qualified. Have you been principally responsible for the preparation of the site plan for this application?
I have.
And were you present during my introductory comments?
I was.
And were they factually accurate?
They weren't.
They weren't or they were?
They
I'm sure.
were, yes. Affirmative, yes.
Can you take us through the condition of the existing structures and existing conditions, please?
Sure, so I've been through both buildings, including going around the basements and so forth, and they're in fair to poor condition. There appears to be some settling issues with some of the foundation, particularly in the back. You can see the door jambs are out of alignment and things of that nature on the rear of the building. On the corner, the second building in, which is the one-story one, which actually demised into two commercial spaces, has some type of a crawl space up front, which was not accessible, and the back of the building's on a slab. So I was in and around all of that also. I mean, certainly with a lot of work, they might be serviceable in the current condition. They're not in great shape.
Can you give us an overview, please, of the site plan that's being proposed to the board this evening?
Sure. So first, I just provide a little context. So this is probably one exhibit that I marked. This is the one that is not in your packet, and it's simply just a placement of the site plan on top of an aerial in the immediate surrounding area, which I'm sure everybody's perfectly familiar with.
A2?
What's the description?
It's, we got it labeled as an aerial photograph, so that's probably good. So this just provides the context of the site at the intersection of Whitewood Pike and Station Avenue on the southeast corner, or excuse me, the northwest corner. We've got a one-story business immediately adjacent to us, a music studio, 2 doors over, a variety of, office and retail uses across the street from us. Multi-story office use behind us with associated parking area. So that's just sort of the general context of the overall site itself. So the site plan is being proposed, as was described, as the building up and in close proximity to both Station Avenue and White Horse Pike, setback a little bit from White Horse Pike along the line of Station Avenue. Single loaded driveway in the rear that services 6 parking spaces, 1 ADA space, and 5 regular spaces. A trash enclosure under, and they exist under the overhang of the 2nd floor in the back. So the drive aisle is open to the air, but the spaces themselves are under the 2nd floor of the building. There is a trash enclosure area that's about 8 foot 4 inches by 18 feet. It's going to service both the commercial and residential tenants in the building. That's accessible through a door that comes off the back wall, and then will be accessed with a wider door on the front, where they will literally have rollout dumpsters that the trash service is contracted by the building owner. They will come in, they'll roll the dumpsters out, they'll pick them up, and they'll have to back out of the lot in order to service that. There's not any practical way to turn a vehicle around in the lot. So certainly, we're going to want to schedule those at times where we don't have all that traffic that is typically occurring in several times during the day out on Route 30 on Pike. So it was interesting when I was coming down here tonight. I guess from about 6:45, it was probably one of the least heavily traveled times that I've been in the area. And I've been in the area many times. And I was thinking, well, that might be a good time frame for maybe pickup. But certainly, early in the morning before rush hour starts would be another consideration. But I think the key is that you want to schedule those. Since you're contracting that service, you can figure out the best time to do that.
Mr. Quay, can it be a rear loaded removal? So they're not backing, they're backing into the
It certainly
site.
could be. So, I mean, that's the other option.
So they're backing into the
Yeah, you
site
literally pull
and then
back
pulling
into the
out.
site And load it from the back and pull out.
That's something that you can arrange.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there are plenty of options, so we could, that's actually a great idea. So we could certainly do it that way, and that is a maneuver that makes a whole lot more
And
sense.
we'll agree to that as a condition of approval.
And while I'm asking questions, materials on the trash enclosure, if you could
Yeah,
describe
so
that.
the materials on the trap now, it's interesting, the redevelopment plan indicates that if the enclosure is separate from the building, it needs to be a complete masonry enclosure. This is actually under the overhang of the building, so technically it doesn't fit that component of the redevelopment plan. But the intention is to put exterior materials on this that match the other materials that are going to be.
Complementary exterior facade
Absolutely.
materials, not a
And
chain link
The gate will be a
fence.
steel frame gate on the front that's not, you can't see through.
So opaque, screening, exterior architectural materials, not chain link fence.
That's correct.
Thank you.
So we're going to be renewing all the hardscape around the perimeter of the site. The sidewalks going to be reconstructed, but we're going to maintain the same pattern of materials that are along Station Avenue currently, consistent with the materials going up and down Station Avenue with the brick pavers and the surrounds for the tree pits and so forth. We're looking to match them exactly as they are currently. One thing that was talked about was the tree spacing. The redevelopment ordinance contemplated 40 foot on center tree spacing. These two trees that we're proposing are actually in the same location that it's out there currently, which is about 65 feet apart. And there's a decorative light pole that's, fairly close to the middle of where those two trees are. We could introduce another tree in between those two and get it about 30 foot on center. I'm a little concerned that as that tree matures, it's going to have a negative impact on the light fixture that would be in fairly close proximity to it.
I have no objection to the waiver.
And I would also say, it's, there's a three-phase wire overhead, ECU, electric.
We indicated that that was relief required per the redevelopment plan. I have no objection to the waiver being considered by the board.
We appreciate that, because with that, that's really the only deviation we need, because otherwise, Mr. Quay, you've reviewed the redevelopment plan?
I have, and I was fairly heavily involved while it was being drafted.
And with the exception of the deviation, and I appreciate that the board just granted us with respect to the street trees, does this application comply with all the applicable requirements of the redevelopment plan?
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, it does, and I would certainly, Steve, thinks if there's anything we need to, take a look at, well, we should be able to comply with whatever's in there. So to whatever extent we don't, we'll make it happen.
Mr. Clay, if you're talking about compliance, the redevelopment plan calls out for medical, dental, chiropractor, veterinary, and therapy and wellness offices, then a minimum of 2 typical parking spaces and 1 ADA space shall be provided on site.
Yep.
Per our previous discussions prior to the hearing, can you testify that these uses are not contemplated?
They are, and I just to further on that, so if by some chance they were contemplated in the future, it would require us to modify our off-site parking agreement to add 2 more spaces so that we would have enough spaces to make up the.
You would have to seek some sort of amended approval.
Yeah, that's
Because
correct.
this requires on-site, and right now you have all the on-site designated for the residential except for the
Yeah,
ADA space.
Yeah, I mean, my read of it was that we have to provide spaces for the residential units, either on site or within, I believe it's 500 feet of the site through a parking agreement. So what we're doing currently is we've got 5 on-site spaces, we've got 1 ADA, which is required, and then we've got 7 by lease agreement at the site that's immediately behind us here, which is within 500 feet of the site. So I don't want to get into a bunch of detail, but if by some chance a medical use was contemplated in the future, we would need to then get 2 more spaces by agreement within that 500 feet to still comply with the 12 that we need for the residential units, because 2 of those spaces on site would have to go.
But that's
to
not part of your
medical use.
application right
We
now.
are not
So-
contemplating that. That's
So, because
correct.
we're not looking for any parking relief or
No, we're not
anything
looking
else.
for any parking.
So your testimony is they're not contemplated under this
They're
application.
not contemplated, but just so the board's clear, but we're not ruling out that possibility, but they are not contemplated. And if that should happen, if they still have to come back, then that's what we would do.
Yeah, and
If we-
that would just be an amendment,
If we-
because otherwise we don't have proof of the
Yeah,
requirements.
no, I completely agree.
So, and Mr. Quay, can you talk about the one other item that would possibly, in my opinion, not be in compliance unless you get the waiver that's currently submitted to the county for the encroachment in the right of
Oh,
way?
certainly. So the buildings, along, there's overhangs on both the White Horse Park and on Station Avenue. The bay windows that were described previously that extend beyond the building facade on the 2nd and 3rd level, which I think frankly adds some great architectural character to the building. But as Steve correctly pointed out, that protrusion into the right of way of Station Avenue will require approval from the county, which we've had preliminary discussion with them, and we don't anticipate a problem with that. So, but we will provide, provide proof of that acceptance from the county of that protrusion into the right of way out front.
All right.
So,
And I just have to cover all the bases, if you do not receive that approval from the county,
yeah,
would you remove that encroachment?
I-
You would have
I
to.
don't think we have a choice.
You would have to.
Yeah, we would
So
have to.
I'm just trying to prevent you having to return for anything.
No,
So it's either or. You get the approval from Camden County for the encroachment, or they would have to remove the encroachment, because we cannot approve improvements on property that is not private property.
For
Camden County owns their property, we can't approve anything for
for
it.
the board's benefit, it's in our preliminary discussions with the county, they indicated us that they have no issue with this.
And I will note that in some of the other surrounding communities, They actually have provision for those overhangs and encroachments into the right of way. And I've had other applications that they've involved county roads, and we haven't had an issue with that condition. So,
Based on my interaction so far with county planning department and county engineering, I believe it's probable that the encroachment will be granted, but we don't have it in hand yet.
Mr. Quay, can you discuss, as per Mr. Bach's letter, the landscaping plan and irrigation for the site?
yeah, we're planning to irrigate all of the landscaping on the site, and we'll make the adjustments that Mr. Bach recommends in his letter related to some additional evergreen plants and so forth. So we can take no issue with those comments.
I believe Mr. Spencer covered this, but just to be sure, with respect to the, we'll comply with all requirements regarding utility structures and meters as per the redevelopment plan.
Yeah, that's correct, and what Mr. Spencer testified to is consistent with my understanding of how we're going to handle that.
We've covered the trash. Mr. Bach, any further questions? Okay.
No,
How about lighting?
Yeah, so the lighting in the rear of the site is proposed to be underneath the overhang for those parking spaces. And our initial look at that was that was going to be adequate to provide enough light on the driveway aisle for safety purposes. We'll make sure the color temperature is consistent with, what we're looking for. There's an existing post lamp on Station Avenue that we're proposing to leave in place. We weren't proposing to add any others along there. There is a, on the pipe, there is a, part of the traffic structure and so forth has a pole with an overhead light on it that's more traditional type of light. We weren't proposing the decorative lamps along the pipe, and it doesn't appear that, I could be wrong, but Station Avenue is really where those lamps are focused currently.
So the existing architectural street lamp will remain.
Yep.
It's your testimony and for the exhibits. You'll have under canopy lighting that'll be non-glare, not visible to the public, and the rest of it will be pedestrian architectural lighting just as necessary for building code.
Certainly the outdoor cafe areas and the door entrances are going to have required lighting as per the building code. And,
But all non-glare and shielded.
Yep, that's correct.
And if we can make sure that's noted in, so it carries forward forever, non-glare and shielded. Thank you.
You want those details added to the plans, Mr. Bach?
It can be, it can be noted. They're really going to be in the architectural, as long as it's in the resolution.
I can add a note to the plan to that effect.
Yeah, but we're not really going to be reviewing any lighting except for the under canopy that's provided by Mr. Quay. The rest of it's going to be done by the building code officials under the architecturals.
There was some testimony earlier, Mr. Quay, about a mural. Did we propose one or did we not?
It's at the approval and discretion of.
What was that one?
The mural.
That's.
gonna be-
In the argument, that mural was like mandatory.
It's not.
I don't believe it
It was
is.
a recommendation, leave the agreement.
HBC asked for it not to be put up too.
So if the council goes with
Again,
HPC, then we won't provide one, but
no, as long as you agree that it's going to be under the requirements, it has to be approved by mayor and council. If it's never approved by mayor and council, there's no mural. So, but that's, you're not proposing any deviation from what already the
That's
redevelopment.
correct.
That's all we're asking.
with respect to affordable housing, Mr. Quay, is it correct that the applicant's proposing 2 affordable housing units?
That's correct.
Is it also true that the applicant will address the bedroom mix and income restrictions of those units with Borough Council in the redevelopment agreement? Is it also true that for the commercial portion of the redevelopment, the applicant will comply with the applicable non-residential development fee requirements, whatever they may be?
That's correct.
Parking, Mr. Bach, you want us to go through parking, or we've covered that?
Any,
You satisfied?
we've indicated in our review what we indicated is in compliance and what testing is required. I believe there's only one other aspect that we're really asking for a little bit of information, if Mr. Quay can provide that. And you agree to all the technical items in our review.
Yes.
You are proposing some stormwater remediation.
I am. Yeah, we are, yes.
You indicated in your submission items that this not qualify as a major redevelopment under NJDEP stormwater regulations?
It's just not. It's less than a quarter of an acre of additional impervious, and it's less than an acre of disturbance.
Could you go through what you were proposing in terms of what you think is appropriate, and actually it's a voluntary stormwater remediation design?
Certainly. So, I've had some experience looking at stormwater issues in this area of town. I was actually asked at one time by Gradwell to take a look at the back of their building, and I'm familiar with all of the stormwater that was put in, for the building behind Gradwell. But, when I first came out to look at the backyards of these two areas, it was quite an experience in that, they're both lower than everything around it. They had basement-type sump pumps installed in pits back there with, pump out lines that basically just got them out to the apron at, on a White Horse Pike. I would say that all my years, I think that's the first time I've ever seen that particular approach to the drainage area. And, so certainly we knew we needed to do something to try and address that situation. So what we're doing a couple of things. One is the back area sort of sits in a hole currently. We're building that up so that the paved surface itself, while it doesn't drain directly off the White Horse Pike, it overflows to the White Horse Pike now. So it's very close in grade to the the sidewalk and the apron out in front. If you build any an inch or so of water up, it's going to escape to the pike. And that's just to provide a point of emergency relief so we're not impacting other properties around us. And then the second thing we're doing is we're putting an underground system in under the rear parking lot that's going to, go down to a permeable level of soils that's, down about 6 or 7 feet in the ground. And then provide an overflow from that system up the side of the building to tie into the drain that's out in front of our site in Station Avenue. But that's, once again, the system's got to build some water up in it before it runs out to that pipe in Station Avenue. I think it's going to represent a significant improvement to the drainage, at the rear of this site. And, it's not strictly dictated by the code because we don't constitute a major development, but perhaps I think it's the right thing to do. And I talked to the clients about that, and they agreed, and that's why it's being proposed. We had an issue we needed to address, and I think we've taken a fairly robust stab at addressing it.
And Mr. Quay, per discussions prior to this hearing, you are going to have an infiltration component, but you're going to do a clay, maybe you can describe it, a clay cutoff wall facing towards the Gradwell Recording Studio.
Correct.
And those properties. So infiltration will not project, and you'll demonstrate this by mounting, groundwater mounting calculations.
We're going to supplement our report with a mounting analysis, and we're going to use basically an impermeable barrier on the vertical sides of the system to not allow water to travel horizontally out of this, to basically force it down into the subsoils, below.
So this is going to protect, groundwater mounting analysis goes from the point of where the infiltration is, and it usually goes on an angle, 45, 66, whatever it is. This is going to restrict it. The sides are going to be impervious. It's going to infiltrate straight down. They're going to have to demonstrate that it will de-water within 72 hours. That's a state requirement, so we don't have mosquitoes. And they're going to have to demonstrate there will have no impact for the infiltration, where we can't impact anybody else's basements. That's really what that is all about. And Mr. Quay, you indicated that you have the drain lines in the front. Maybe this was a question from Mr. Spencer. All the roof leaders, where are the roof leaders
They're
going?
coming back and going into the underground system.
So we're not going to have any roof leaders that splash onto the sidewalks?
Oh, no.
No roof leaders, and can we have that a condition of the resolution? No roof leaders that would discharge directly to the sidewalk areas on the Station and White Horse Pike. And you can do many different ways of doing it. You can take them out to the curb, but as long as you have the roof
I'll
leaders.
say this, if we had to bring leaders down on the front part of the roof, we'll look to coordinate piping that inlet out front.
Perfect, thank
We
you.
got a storm inlet out front of the site that gives us that opportunity, but.
And that would eliminate any,
Routing around to that from the system. We haven't worked out all the details of roof drainage yet, but they will not be coming out to the sidewalk.
And the reason that's important, all of Station Avenue, if you recall, as part of the pedestrian improvements, have the small discharge pipes going through the curb, mainly for the winter events. So when you have the small drip, you don't have the freeze lines going across the sidewalks. So they're not going to have that either.
Will that be the same for condensation line, drains of any sort as well?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Like condensation, like any air conditioning condensation
They have to go to the
drains?
sanitary lines, the sanitary
Yeah,
system.
the condensate drains off the time the sanitary.
Yeah, they don't consider that stormwater.
I'm not sure, we're just,
That's going into the sewer system.
oh, I know that there are a couple older buildings here that window air conditioner type things that are dripping down on the sidewalk as well, so.
Well, that will
That will not
won't
be an
happen
issue.
here.
That will happen here with this new building.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Quay, you did a trip generation analysis, is that correct?
That's correct.
And we can go into detail if you want, Mr. Buck, but the bottom line is your analysis indicates there will be no measurable impact on the transportation.
Yeah, I mean, I can briefly describe it. So, you know, the retail and commercial space that's on the site currently is about equivalent to the amount of square footage of retail and commercial space we're proposed. So that essentially, from a trip generation standpoint, is a wash. So there are 2 apartments on the corner building currently. We're going to have 12. So the analysis comes down to looking at an additional 10 1- and 2-bedroom apartments. And they generate, I believe, 4 AM peak hour trips additionally and 5 PM peak hour. And I believe it was 67 total daily trips from the site in addition to what's there currently. It's based on the background levels of traffic in the area, it's statistically insignificant.
And as for parking, just so the board's aware for clarification, so the redevelopment plan requires parking for the residential units to be dedicated for use of the residents between 7 PM and 7 AM. Will comply, correct?
Yep.
And we'll have the appropriate signage?
We will, and as I said, 5 of those spaces are actually on site, and 7 of them will be through a lease agreement immediately behind us, on the site behind us. And then if you want, I can talk about the commercial component too. So the commercial space, per the redevelopment agreement, does not require on-site parking. Actually, it doesn't, the way it's worded is that we need to demonstrate that there is adequate public or private parking available within 1,300 feet of the site for the number of spaces that would be contemplated for the given use that's in there. So what we did was we went out and this is actually in the report, so I don't think we need to mark it as a separate exhibit, I just blew it up for me. But we looked at the sites, we looked at that 1,300 foot perimeter, actually we didn't get into granular detail out of the margins out here, but you know, we identified a number of public parking areas that were within this location and found more than adequate support for public parking to support the use, the retail and commercial use that's contemplated, whether it be a standard commercial use or even a restaurant. Now, the restaurant component, you know, is based on employees and tables. We don't have a layout, so I made a sort of an estimate of what it might be. And, you know, my opinion and my observations on this are that we're not going to have any problem complying with that component based on the number of spaces that are available, you know, out in the community. And I mean, I've come to Heights many times, you know, for the restaurants are there, and I can say I don't think I may have to walk a block or 2, but I've never had a problem finding a parking space to be able to.
So parking as presented is compliant with the redevelopment plan.
Thank you, Mr. Bach.
We'll have one question on parking. Notice that the lease for the 7 spaces is only a 3-year lease, so what if that's not renewed, or is that?
That's what's required in the redevelopment plan.
3-year lease?
Yes.
That's it. So they're compliant with the redevelopment plan, which is our guiding. And I think, and you're going to hear me talk about this anyway, but I'll take 2 minutes for this. The redevelopment plan is the ordinance for this application. This is our rule book. It is separate, and unless it is, if it specifically changed something that's contemplated elsewhere in our ordinance, the redevelopment plan takes precedence. So that's our rule book. If they're compliant, not asking for relief, then there's really nothing that we can do here. And that's very specifically one of those items. It only required a 3-year lease with the option to renew, and they have provided proof of that. The only thing while I'm talking,
Sure.
so we don't have to go any more into trash or testimony. There is a requirement for an operational statement outlining the plan for solid waste and recyclables. Can that be submitted as a condition of approval? Now that you have some of the changes that we heard about, and that way the applicant indicate, yes, we're taking care of trash and recycles. Yes, we're going to have the truck back up, and we'll remove the trash as necessary so it doesn't come out of the enclosures. That's pretty much the whole thing that we need.
I should have recorded it, and then I
Yeah,
just could have got it.
but you and I have done too many of them, but that's what we're looking
Yeah,
for.
no problem.
Thank you. I have no other questions for Mr. Quay.
Just to finish up, then two quick questions, Mr. Quay. You've reviewed Mr. Bach's June 12 letter. Are there any comments in his letter that we don't agree with or we need to clarify? We've covered everything.
Nothing other than what we covered in testimony tonight.
And in your professional opinion as an engineer and planner, does this application comply with all the requirements of the RDP and the ordinances Mr. Bach has said?
With the exception of the tree spacing that we already talked about, yes.
And the possible encroachment, but that
Right,
could be
and
resolved, that could
addressing
be
the
curable.
encroachments, that's correct.
I don't have any further questions of Mr. Quay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, with that, that would conclude my presentation. I do have, again, Mr. Farrow, Mr. Giolelli, here the principles of the applicant to the extent that we've not answered or addressed any of the questions from Mr. Bach, any of the comments in his review letter, or any questions from the board, but they're here if the board deems necessary, but otherwise.
Maybe first go see if you approve his.
Sure.
Sure. And this will be very, very brief because I made sure I went through and got the testimony we needed. So refer the board to our June 12th, 2024 review. 2 points of relief, as we already heard about through testimony, is spacing for the shade trees. And then also the only other point of relief that we recognize an encroachment if Camden County provides the approval. If not, the encroachment has to disappear. But that's technically, in my mind, relief because we don't contemplate improvements of buildings on any other property except for private property. The applicant has provided. Excuse me? Yes, I would treat that as, I would treat it as I like to do on redevelopment plans, a waiver. I don't like to go on a design waiver or a variance. I go on a waiver of compliance, and I think that is the cleanest way. Any objection, Mr. Russo? Yeah, and variances and waivers, but I don't think it rises to the level of a variance because it's not into the bulk standards. The applicant has provided all the testimony that I've required and asked for under the review. The applicant has indicated that they comply with all technical items and conditions, and they'll also submit an operation statement as to the plans for solid waste and recyclables, and they'll update the application materials as necessary to indicate the removal of the trash rooms, the storage that they're provided, everything that they testified tonight. The application materials should be revised to reflect architectural as well as engineering. The applicant has agreed to provide all the outside agency approvals and to provide them once they are obtained. Ms. Quay, it's my understanding that you're seeking or currently seeking a waiver for the driveway with the DOT?
No, we're submitting an access.
An actual access permit?
Yeah, it's very similar to another application we had in Audubon. So it's
So they are
it's
gonna
a
require-
driveway modification permit and a minor access permit.
Right, okay, so
Yeah.
you will provide some sort of evidence that DOT will be approving whatever modifications to the drive aisle. Thank you. Well, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Steve, I just was curious, the site triangle issue at Wentworth Pike.
It's not really a site triangle, and Mr. Quay should probably, signalized intersection.
Okay.
So a signalized intersection doesn't have site triangles.
Okay.
Traffic light doesn't have site. So we have no issue regarding that.
Okay.
So, did I have a requirement for a site triangle in my review?
You said something, a site triangle should be shown at the proposed driveway along Wentworth Place.
That is not, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, they have to show compliant, they're gonna have to do that for their access permit anyway.
Right.
But for the side driveway, they're gonna have to show the site triangles. Based on, Mr. Gray, maybe you can point out and give some initial testimony based on the distance from the curb to the front face of the building. Do you anticipate any difficulty having an ASHTO
I
compliant
don't.
site triangle?
The distance back from the edge of the travel lane to establish a site triangle is 14 feet. And we have more than that from the curb line.
I think you have that, I think you have it easy from the curb even without a painted
Yeah.
shadow line. So they're gonna have to demonstrate compliance with an ASHTO site triangle. And I'm sorry, Dean, I thought you were talking about the redevelopment plan. We talked about site triangles at Whitehorse Pike and Station. That's what I was talking about with a
No.
traffic light.
That's different.
Even though that has a turn on right, you don't have to worry about that?
That's the rules. The rules are if it's a signalized intersection, you do not have to worry about the site triangles.
Yeah, and actually, so the turn on right, the site triangle issue would actually be going in the opposite direction, looking at the traffic that's coming, into that travel lanes from, the east side of the intersection. And the development doesn't impact that at all.
I was saying from going east from Station going east to make a right-hand turn going towards Barrington.
So that'll be a similar site triangle along the Whitehorse Pike.
Yeah.
Where they have the 14-foot clear.
Right.
So they'll have a compliant
You
ASHTO.
actually got more than 14 feet from the stop bar of the curb line. So the site triangle would be out in this area here.
So,
Because it's from the edge of the travel lane back. So the contemplation is that you pull forward to the edge of the travel lane before you make the turn. And the building's not close to being obstructing.
Mr. Quay, would you be so kind as a part of compliance to show exactly what we're just talking about for those
Sure,
legs?
we can add
And
those
that way we
lights
can
to the
add the site triangles, even though they're technically not required, but show that if it was not stop controlled, that they would still be compliant for the whole intersection. I think that would address some of the concerns. Is that correct, sir? All right.
Okay.
Mr. Schmidt?
We also have anything for Steve? Sorry, I'll call the applicants forward and see if you have any questions, comments to the applicants as far as the operation of the building or what he does or.
If the board has any questions, I'm happy to.
I guess at this point, open it up to the public for any questions or comments. On the board, we'll have a solicitor swearing in.
Good evening, everyone.
Name and address for the record, please.
Ken Funkhauser, 414 Second Avenue.
Raise your right hand. You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you.
Mostly questions. The additional parking, I think the gentleman in the blue shirt said would be leased from next door. Is that the blue law office or is it the 120 Whitehorse Pike parking lot?
It's the law office that's
Okay.
immediately behind us.
Okay, excellent. And by way of comment, I'm just curious whether Mr. Spencer, he testified that 501 has no historic value. I'm curious whether you know the original purpose of the building.
Yeah, let me clarify my comments. I'm not saying the building as a whole has no historic value. I'm saying in its current condition, it's no longer contributing in the capacity that it once was.
Okay.
I believe it was an old butcher shop.
It was
I
the,
believe that the first butcher shop.
it was
Yeah, so I mean,
1902.
the original structure certainly has historic value.
Okay.
It's been quite degraded over the years with non-compliant additions and modifications.
Sure. Just when you throw siding on it, you immediately.
White vinyl windows aren't the most historic.
Right. So by way of that reference to the butcher shop, I might have a suggestion, and I don't know access to the redevelopment commission, but I see the mayor is here, and I know you're on the commission. I might suggest that the owners give some representation of that building, the original 501, the Crook's Butcher Shop, and whether it be in the form of, similar to the TD Bank, the Whitehorse Pike panel that they have in the back of the bank building, or as a member of the board of the Historical Society, as you probably all are aware, we've got 14 or 15 historical interpretive markers around town. Possibly the owners would be willing to put together a historical interpretive marker somewhere on the property, identifying the building.
That's something we could incorporate in the agreement.
Okay.
We're quite familiar with what you're referring to, markers. We've approved a number of these now in support of those.
Sure.
It's an easy one.
It's a quick hit,
It's
and
something we can work in the agreement, and it's more work with Gary
and I'm sure Margaret Westfield has got pages on that building already, so that the development of the sign would not be an issue at all. But that was my suggestion. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Dr. Courthouse, all that. Anybody else like to speak on this application? No, post public comment. Back over to Lisa.
Mr. Hanson, members of the board, that concludes our presentation. We hope that the board appreciates the improvement that we are proposing here, and we'd ask that the board grant our application this evening.
Yeah, the applicant is requesting preliminary and final site plan approval. The building is in the historic district and have received recommendation from the Historical Commission. It appears to me that they are only requesting relief for the waiver for the street trees. And I didn't note a few conditions of approval. I know that I noted quite a few in the letter, but the ones that discussed here tonight, if you'll humor me, just to make sure I have them all, is to ensure that any lighting will be non-glare and shielded, and that'll be a condition of approval. We'll also have no roof leaders, right?
Yes,
With
downspouts, you
discharge.
used roof leader or downspouts discharging the sidewalk.
Yeah, because that of course would be a safety issue. And then I also have, they're gonna submit the operational statement. But I think that was already in your letter, correct?
I asked for them to give operational testimony instead of belaboring the point, and since we have so many changes on like the trash as represented, if they give an operational statement as a condition of approval, that would be appropriate.
In the sight line on the drawings?
Yeah, and also the easement lines on the on-site driveway, which is required, as well as the 4 legs of the adjacent intersections they agreed to.
Thank you, that was gonna be my next question. So the testimony provided tonight demonstrated that they were in compliance with the redevelopment plan, which as Steve described, is really the governing ordinance for this application. They're requesting that relief that I mentioned. There's going to be quite a few conditions of approval that we just went over. They're going to comply with all the points in the letter, which I noted had a lot of just changes to the plan so that it's clear.
And then the only other thing I would add is just recognizing the encroachment if approved by Camden County, because technically that's relief because we're approving something outside of the property line.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, and that's going to be approved, may or may not be approved.
Yeah.
Approval for that, so.
And Mr. Quay, I think I had this in my letter. Any operation and maintenance for the stormwater management would be recorded and become part of the deed. That's acceptable, standard practice.
Yep, understood.
Deed recorder, deed record the base manual.
Yeah, I don't know if I have that in the letter, but.
I think it is.
Okay. It's all running together at this point.
Yeah, no, I think it was the letter was sorry for
All right,
that.
thank you.
So I think that really includes certification.
Thank you.
I think we're looking at site plan approval with some waivers, conditions. Anybody want to make a motion to approve, disapprove the application?
And could we suggest preliminary and final?
Preliminary and final.
I'll fumble through a motion to approve. As long as it's in compliance with the box letter, things discussed as far as the trash being backloaded and more other specifics in regards to trash. We picked up, as long as nothing is so following that, that the sewer lights be non-glare and shielded, that no roof leaders lead to the sidewalk, that the encroachment for the Cannon County right of way is in compliance, and a waiver of restrictions, and any other waivers we might have discussed, but I did not.
Very good.
Very great.
Second.
I'll second.
Any comment, discussion, questions on the motion? Hearing none, roll call, Suzanne.
Mayor Halk,
Yes.
Councilwoman Herron,
Yes.
Chairman Hansen,
Yes.
Mr. Dukakis?
Yes.
Mr. Shannon,
Yes.
Mr. Famularo,
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt,
Yes.
and Ms. McCall.
I'll give you the same spiel about the resolution, but I don't think you're going to be ready to go by then. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All recycled. Or trees. Completely different timing.
The public for any. Thank you very much for your members.
Guys, we're.
Non-entertaining motion to adjourn.
Okay, good.
So moved.
I didn't want to interrupt.
Aye.
Now I can say. I didn't want to get up while they were recording. I gotta sit down with you someday. Jesus.
How you been? You look good.